What's going on, y'all? Episode 11, season 2, Let's Be Real podcast, man. Look, I know I've been gone for a little while, holidays and everything, just a lot going on, but look, we are back. We are ready to go. Um, and look, as always, we're going to talk about sports. We got the Super Bowl coming up next week. So we're obviously going to get into some football, finish up with some football. We'll do another episode this week strictly on the Super Bowl, have some guests on. And then, man, look, then it's straight into basketball season. Y'all know I'm ready to talk about that. And we're gonna touch on some basketball today as well. But first, you know how we always do it, man. Look, we got the wine today, and so today I got a Zinfandel. It's from Macchia. It's called Mischievous. It's a 2022 Zinfandel from Lodi. And look, I bought this a couple times. I think I've even done it on a previous episode before, but really good wine. Great for like just sitting around, sipping on. If you need something to maybe watch a game with, just while you watch it, like I'm going to be drinking on this while I'm watching the Lakers in New York tonight. So I'm going to be drinking on this through that game, but definitely recommend it. Yeah, man. So just about the wine, it is full body. So just get that out. And it does have a little peppery start. But look, once you get past that, you get just a lot of blackberry, nice little vanilla finish on it. And so I definitely recommend it, man. Like I said, I think I bought this a couple times now, featured it on an episode before, but definitely one of my favorite wines right now. So definitely go check it out. It's a good price point on it. So definitely recommend it. And so, look, man, we're gonna get right into it, man. Going back to last week, recapping the NFL. So we had the two games, obviously, the conference championship games, and we're gonna start off with the Patriots and the Broncos, man. So Patriots get the win, 10-7 in an offensive showcase. No, but for real, man. So, look, getting into the game, I think the biggest thing I think a lot of that a lot of people are going in on is about as far as who's to blame for the loss on the Broncos side. And so I know Sean Payton's been getting a lot of that. And look, I will say, when you're starting a backup quarterback, obviously you're starting the game with one hand tied behind your back. However, Sean Payton did himself no favor saying that there's really no drop off between Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham. And so I think we saw that there is. And look, y'all know, if you've been watching the podcast at all, I'm not a Bo Nix person. I'm not big on Bo Nix. I think he gets more credit than he deserves. But I think we clearly saw that there is a drop off between him and Jarrett Stidham. But look, I think when we go back, obviously, it's easy to say, oh, well, like this play and this play, but I look at this game, and one of the big things, and one of the reasons I do think Sean Payton does deserve a lot of blame, even though he's starting a backup quarterback, is just when we look back in that first half, second quarter, a chance to go up 10-0, double digit, or a 2-score game, 4th-and-1 from the 14-yard line, 9 minutes to go in the second, man. And Sean Payton elects to go for it on that 4th-and-1 rather than take the points, and it gets stopped. And so, I mean, normally I like a more aggressive coach. I think if you're inside the 5-yard line, 4th-and-goal, 4th-and-2, 4th-and-1 from the inside on that 1-yard line, whatever, I would always say go for it. The reason I don't like the call here is, one, you are starting a backup quarterback. Two, you have to know that when we looked at that first half, obviously conditions were optimal, and I get it. You're going against this Patriots team. You're like, look, let's give a knockout punch right here in the second quarter. I get the thinking behind that, but to that point, the Patriots had 1 first down. They had run 12 plays, and on those 12 plays, averaged 1 yard. They had gotten 12 total yards in 12 plays. So your defense is shutting them down. You also have to know that second half, man, that weather got bad. You need to know that weather is going to get bad, and it's probably not going to be a high-scoring game. And that means points are at a premium. And look, I'm not saying they go up 10-0, then, we're looking at a 10-10 game because, Patriots end up scoring 10. But I'm saying you give your backup quarterback a 2-score cushion in a game where the weather is going to get really bad, It's just, to me, the extra 4 points, and even then, I mean, you're not guaranteed. You get that 1 yard, you get a first down, you still got 13 to go. And the Patriots defense has also been playing really well this whole playoffs. And so to me, I think it's fair to question that play call. It's fair to say it, in a game where we saw a total of 17 points, where you scored 7, we're looking at 40% of your points, like, there's 3 points. It makes a big difference. And so to me, I just think that's a bad call in that situation, just especially when you factor in everything else. If we're talking about perfect conditions, it looks like, hey, you know what? We might need to score a lot. I get it. If, for instance, in the Seahawks-Rams game, I get going for a 4th and 1. But it's just not the game you were in at that point. And so I do think Sean Payton gets a lot of blame for this loss. I also, it's hard to really kill a team that loses their starting quarterback going into the conference championship, right? Like, you're talking about starting a guy who hadn't started, I think they said, in 2 or 3 years. And so, that obviously plays a role in it. But again, I just think as a head coach, you need to know different times, situation, weather, like that falls into your job. And so I just think it's fair to give him a good share of the blame, even with the backup quarterback, because of that, especially just from that play. I mean, obviously then you get the later play where Stidham makes a awful decision of, not going down, trying to make a play and giving the Patriots the ball inside like the 20, 25, whatever it was. And, so he gets a big part of that blame too, but he's a backup quarterback. At the end of the day, with those conditions, starting a backup quarterback, give him a 2-score lead, give him a little bit more cushion in case he makes a mistake, that it's, not, it doesn't immediately cost you. And so, yeah, with that, I mean, I think it's fair to give Sean Payton a lot of that blame. Next thing coming out of this game, man, is I think it's, one of the questions I see a lot is it fair to kind of doubt the Patriots going into the Super Bowl? And so it's funny because, you see both sides of this where, okay, you have the super Patriot homers or Patriot fans talking about, it's first team ever had to go through, I think, 3 top 5 defenses in the league to get to the Super Bowl. And look, taking nothing away from it, man. The Chargers, great defense. The Texans, I mean, if they went on a run, could have been a historic level defense. Broncos, incredible defense. And so this isn't to say that, they didn't beat those teams. However, on the flip side, you dealt with, in that Chargers game, Justin Herbert, who looked like right from the coin toss wasn't going to throw very many passes and wasn't going to try to do anything crazy. Now, whether that's because just wanted to keep the ball safe, whether it's because, little bit of kind of playoff anxiety that we've seen from him before, or a little bit of looking back at, dang, last time I was here, I threw more picks in this game than I did the entire season last year. And so maybe just that kind of looming in the back of your head, like, I can't lose this game for us. And look, at that point, if that's your thought process going in, it's you already lost. And so, while yes, they did play a great defense, I can't give them the same credit on the other side because you played a guy who literally wasn't going to throw the ball against you. Next game, you got the Texans. And while, yes, look, the Texans, I would say, outside of, and let's go back to, as far as in that Chargers game, they played well against Drake May. They played well against that offense. That defense did play well. So then the next game we get the Texans where, again, Texans played a great game defensively. That's a game that if CJ Stroud doesn't just implode in front of all our eyes, that's a game I would say an average quarterback in the NFL wins 10 out of 10 times. And so it's just hard for me to give you the credit you deserve for beating such a great defense when you have 5 fumbles, when you have, I think he had a couple picks that game as well, if I remember it. I can't remember, but anyways, you have 5 fumbles, you know, have a ton of fumbles, turnovers, and it's just you're playing against a quarterback on the other side who seems intent on making sure his team doesn't go to the next round. And look, Drake May, he did make a couple great throws. He had that throw to Boutte in the end zone, which incredible catch by Boutte. But Drake May, you know, he made some good throws in that game. But again, I mean, that defense gave him trouble. And if we're not looking at what would map out to be the worst quarterback of all time playing, I'm not saying CJ is. I'm just saying if you were to have that game mapped out across the season, like, yeah, that's not an NFL quarterback. And now, if you want to say part of that is New England's defense, sure, I can give you some of that. But again, we've now seen kind of CJ have these tough moments, and so I can't give all that to New England when CJ's just making decisions that would get high school quarterbacks benched. And then look, next game against Denver, it's you're playing a backup quarterback. You're playing it, and you know, again, you did what you did on defense. Backup quarterback who hasn't started in a couple years. And offensively, I mean, your one touchdown drive started inside your inside their 20, 25, whatever it was. And you kicked a field goal. Drake May threw for 80 yards. And so it's tough because they have played these great defenses. They have won. But also, what made the Patriots this year was Drake May playing at an MVP runner-up level. And we haven't gotten that from him at all these playoffs, and they've been fortunate to just end up playing quarterbacks who are playing arguably their worst football of their career against them. And so I think it is fair to doubt the Patriots, especially going into the matchup they're going into, just because I think, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but I don't think you're going to get that level of quarterback play on the other side. But look, and it's nothing against the Patriots. You know, you play who's in front of you, and a win is a win. It's just when you add in all of this extra context as far as those things, it does put some doubt as far as, okay, are they the second best team in the NFL? Which I don't think so. I think we saw the best 2 teams play on the other side of the bracket that last week. But it just brings that into the equation as far as they haven't looked impressive in any of their wins, really. And so I do think it's fair to doubt them. I don't think and I mean, luck plays a factor in everyone's playoff run. It's just what it is. But yeah, hard for me to truly believe like, yeah, this is the top that the AFC has to offer. And look, man, when we go to the other side, looking at the NFC, Seahawks, Rams, like I said, I think this was the 2 best teams in the league, and they gave us a game that looked like it was the 2 best teams in the league. So like Seahawks beat the Rams 31-27. And just as far as how the Seahawks won this game, I mean, look, Sam Darnold in a game that, you know, we look at the week prior where, you know, Seahawks run home the opening kick and the game's over. And so Sam Darnold didn't really need to do anything. Last time we really saw him need to go out and be great. I mean, we saw him against the Rams in the regular season, but when we mean like playoff games, winning you advance things, we saw Sam Darnold last year just kind of collapse. And even in that Rams game that they won, was not playing great at all. You know, I think he had 3 picks in the first half, did play great late. and that counts for something. But I think there was just this seed of doubt as far as, okay, Sam Darnold could blow this. And to his credit, man, he came out and was in a game that featured Matt Stafford, who's going to win the MVP this year. He was the best player on the field. And look, Stafford was a close second. They were going throw for throw, points for points. But Sam Darnold was the best player on the field. And this is why I think it was after they lost last year. I said, look, I'd be hesitant to give up on Sam Darnold as he can't perform in the big games, because we almost have to look at him as a guy. It was his first playoff experience, his first big game experience of his career. Now, typically we see those guys are younger in their first, second, third year maybe, and that's when we see those and we're like, okay, well, it's one game, we'll see what it looks like next year. Sam Darnold, because he'd been in the league so long, because he had already had these failures in the league, I think it was kind of just he's not a big game quarterback. And this is what I said at the time is you have to treat this as though he's a young quarterback in his first playoff game, because while he's not young, he is in his first real big-time playoff game, playoff atmosphere. And so you never know how guys are going to respond after going through that once. And I think we saw last week kind of my thoughts around it is, okay, he's got it under his belt, and now he comes out and was dealing. Like I said, best player on the field. And look, the Seahawks defense is great. And look, they had a monster stop on that fourth down that towards the end of the game that basically locked in the game after the offense went out and got a couple first downs. But Sam Darnold was the reason that they won that game. And so, massive ups to him. It's like I said, it's good to see him, and it's good to see, a guy, I know we've seen a few of these guys over the last few years as far as like these reclamation projects, as far as, a Baker, a Geno, where, you have these older guys who, maybe it didn't work out their first team, second team, whatever, and they kind of bounced around. They finally get their shot, and it's like, oh, wow, they played great. But we had never seen any of those guys really win, right? Baker, he's gotten to the playoffs. He's played well in the playoffs, lost. Geno got into the playoffs, lost. And so it's like, well, yeah, you were looking at these reclamation guys like, oh yeah, they can come out and they can play quarterback well. They can be good quarterbacks in the league, maybe pushing a top 10. But there's still that question like, can you really win with them? And now Sam Darnold has kind of become that poster child of, one, how badly the Jets are run. But also, two, is you can have a reclamation project if he's got the talent. And look, I liked Sam Darnold coming out of college. I liked him his first couple of years. I thought, okay, bad situation. But even I was kind of like, Sam Darnold might be cooked. But you see these now that, hey, you can have one of these reclamation projects, and if you put a good team around them, and let's not give it all to Sam. Like, this team is phenomenal. The Seahawks are the best team in football all around. Their special teams are elite. Their defense is elite. Their offense, especially with Sam Darnold playing like that, is elite. And so, and to add further credence to that is, you look at the last 8 games where Sam Darnold didn't play well, 8 interceptions, 8 touchdowns, 8-0. And so, it's a testament to how great that team is. But it's also a testament that if you have a guy who's extremely talented, it's always worth giving him a shot, because you can have a guy who goes out and look, no shots to a J.J. McCarthy, right? But that's who replaced Sam Darnold. And I don't know if J.J. McCarthy in his career is going to have any game, let alone a conference championship game, where he plays football as well as Sam Darnold did last week. And so I think that's the biggest thing as far as like how did the Rams win this game? It's they're the best team, and they are deservingly in the Super Bowl as the best team. And as far as for the Rams, man, like I said, I thought they were. I had them. If y'all follow me on TikTok, you see my TikToks. I had them up in the number one spot for a good portion of the year, top 5 most of the year. Seattle ended up overtaking them in my top 5, but I still think they were the second best team in the playoffs. And look, they looked like it. And the one thing, and the reason they lost this game is the one thing that has kind of hurt them all year. And it's that special teams unit, whether it's a missed field goal, a blocked field goal, a muffed punt that sets the Seahawks up in their own 10-yard line. And so, I mean, what went wrong for the Rams? Look, I mean, easy to point to, and I think obviously the biggest blame goes to the punt returner who dropped that punt. And, I know they fought back, but essentially kind of put that game into where you're playing catch up the whole way. So obviously he gets biggest blame. But look, Matt Stafford, MVP of the league, had a great game. Great game. And the reason why I say Sam Darnold outplayed him, Matt, 0 for 9 passing on third down. First time in his career. Look, and again, biggest ups to that Seattle defense. I think even when you watch that fourth down play where they were trying to take the lead there at the end, that Seattle defense was not going to let Matt Stafford get the ball to Puka or Devontae. And look, I mean, at that point, it's you gotta hope one of your men can beat one-on-one coverage, and they couldn't. And so but yeah, those late down situations, Seattle dominated. And so, look, Matt Stafford still, like I said, I think on a scale to 100, Matt Stafford played a 91. Sam Darnold played a 99, 100, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, biggest thing that went wrong for the Rams has been their one issue this year, and really for the last couple years, special teams. And it's what cost them this game. And, we saw them, they fired their special teams coach coming into the playoffs, I believe. It's sometime recently. They fired their special teams coach, and it was continuously an issue. So that's the biggest thing as far as what went wrong for them. And it's unfortunate because I found myself just with the teams that are left, obviously. I found myself rooting for the Rams. I like the Rams, and I think that anytime you put stakes on it as far as like you can see something great, and I think Matt Stafford, when we're talking about him, if he would have, like I said, I'm pretty sure he's going to win the MVP, but if he goes to the Super Bowl, wins the Super Bowl, and you're talking about a quarterback now who 2 Super Bowls, presumably 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and a regular season MVP, we're now talking about a different class. I think it almost I don't even think almost. I think it assuredly solidifies him as a Hall of Famer. And it's just I root for things like that. And so while I do kind of like the Rams, I think they're a fun team. I enjoy watching them play. I was rooting for them, and just because of that. And so yeah, it's sucks to see, but also, you also have a great story on the other side of it with Sam Darnold. So that sets us up, though, for, we got a Patriots-Seahawks Super Bowl. Seahawks currently favored in that game. Like I said, we're not going to dive really into it today. I'm going to do a whole episode, maybe more than one episode around that. Bring some people on. We'll talk about it. I think my initial thoughts on it, though, I do like the Seahawks in that game. I think, again, like I said, I think they're the best team in the NFL. I don't think they have any weaknesses on any unit. And I don't think that now, obviously, the possibility is always still there that Sam Darnold kind of reverts back, but I don't see that happening. And so with Sam Darnold, even not playing at the level he did, but playing at a good level, B minus B level, I think that gives them enough for a win. But look, the Patriots, man, here's what I'll say. While I do think there's reason to doubt the Patriots, they still have a guy in Drake May who is scratching that top 5-7 quarterback area, runner up MVP, which anytime you have a guy like that who can go out and, be great, then you have a chance to go out and win a game. And we've seen that in, I'm not saying he's this player, but we've seen Patrick Mahomes go out with the worst defense in the league and win a Super Bowl. We've seen Josh Allen go out and do incredible things in playoff games. And so anytime you have a guy who can go into that level, which I don't put Drake May quite on those guys' level, definitely not Patrick's, definitely not Josh's, but like he's kind of right. He's in the area. Anytime you got a guy like that, you can never really count him out. And I think Vrabel has that defense playing extremely well. They couldn't get pressure during the regular season. Hasn't been an issue for him in the playoffs. That defense is playing great. And so Patriots also have great special teams. They don't beat themselves. I think we're in for a good game. I think the Seahawks are just better everywhere except quarterback. And as far as the quarterback, I haven't seen Drake May have a great game in these playoffs. So I don't know, is he going to be a Lamar Jackson, or is he just not had to do too much and they win? I think this week or this next game, the Super Bowl, he's going to have to be great for them to win. And I think that's when we're going to get, and look, I'm not saying just, if he has a bad game, he's going to be Lamar Jackson or, the kind of a playoff underperformer. Again, first playoff run, and so we'll just see how that plays out. But with that, because of that, as I have the Seahawks winning it, and my guess is Sam Darnold would win it, Super Bowl MVP on that. But look, man, we're going to go ahead, and from there, we're going to stay in the NFL because it's been a lot going on. And so we're going to start, man, with the kind of just coaching carousel that we've had in the NFL. I'm going to touch on a couple of the top kind of stories that I think, some of the top hires that I think, and some of the bad hires. And so, look, we're going to start off with the Harbaugh to the Giants. Look, for the Giants, I think it's a great hire. You got a young, solidified quarterback there. And now, while we don't typically give Harbaugh a lot of the credit for Lamar, look, we saw Harbaugh with a young, talented quarterback in Lamar and what him and his coaching staff was able to do as far as bringing Lamar along and really helping Lamar go from a guy where, if y'all remember when he was being drafted, it was the talk was, oh, well, he needs to switch to wide receiver. Like, that's the only way he's going to be able to play in the NFL. To, oh, he's a running quarterback, but he can't throw. I said, oh, well, he can throw a little bit, but still not great. To where now, he's gotten so much better as a passer, still a great runner, and that all happened under Harbaugh's watch. And so I like the idea of him coming in again with a young, talented quarterback. Maybe not as talented as Lamar is, but still a young, talented quarterback. They've got good weapons. They've got a defense that, especially a defensive line that should and could be the best in the league here next year, 2 years, whatever. And so I think it's got a lot of pieces, and bringing him in as a guy who can come in with a winning culture, a guy who's won a Super Bowl, good culture setter, I think it's a really great hire for them. And so I really like that one. Next one we'll talk about, man, is McCarthy to the Steelers. And so for me, this is weird. I was, just talking sports with friends, everything. To me, prior to him being hired, I'm thinking, okay, Steelers, you're getting rid of Tomlin. this is obviously the chance. And look, if y'all know, I've said it on the podcast before. I thought that the Steelers, if they really wanted to get back to Super Bowl contention, parting ways with Mike Tomlin was going to be the way to do it, because he just sets you a floor so high. Like, he's not going to lose enough for you to get a top pick, a top quarterback to really turn your franchise around. And they've been stuck in this kind of like, well, let's see who we can bring in this year at quarterback and maybe get us over the hump. And I just think that because of Tomlin, it sets your floor so high that you have to do it so you can do it. So I see the Steelers, they get rid of Mike Tomlin. I'm like, all right, this is it. They're going to figure this out. Go out, get a young coach, Clint Kubiak, young offensive mind who you can bring in. Even, McDaniel, maybe not, but that kind of guy where long runway, because you're the Steelers, you're not going to fire coaches. And, it just, you can let them tear it down, trade off, JJ or TJ. TJ, you could trade him off, trade off Ramsey, DK, I know you just got him, trade him. But basically just implode the roster, get some draft comp, and really start working on building up this young team with a lot of talent. And so I thought that looked like it was going to be the play for him. And then they hire McCarthy, who, older coach, not going to want to do a rebuild, not really thought of. I mean, offensive coach, not thought of as a great offensive mind. Now, to his credit, Dak did have some of his best years under him. But to me, it's just, you're getting offensive Mike Tomlin. And so for my thoughts is, in reading this, one is that the Steelers probably didn't want Mike Tomlin to leave. My guess is Tomlin said, yeah, I think I'm good here. I think we've reached as far as we can go. And so this tells me the Steelers think that they have a Super Bowl caliber roster if maybe we get one or two tweaks made. Now, to me, that's delusional. I think they are far from a Super Bowl. But yeah, it's just, to me, this says, one, it wasn't a Steelers decision to get rid of Mike McCarthy or get rid of Mike Tomlin. It was a Mike Tomlin decision to leave the Steelers. And again, the Steelers, they think they have a roster close to a Super Bowl, which I think is just delusional. So I don't like this hire. I think it's terrible. I think, again, I mean, if you're the Steelers, I guess it depends on what you want. If you're like, hey, we're going to win 9 games and we might make the playoffs, but we're going to be competitive. If that's your goal, Mike McCarthy is a great hire. If your goal is to get back to a Super Bowl anytime soon, I just don't think this is the way to do it. So I'm going to stick with hires that I'm not too fond of, and we're going to go with Jesse Minter to the Ravens. And so this is kind of a double. We got Jesse Minter, head coach, and we have their OC is going to be Declan Boyle. He was the OC under Ben Johnson this year with the Bears. Now, look, I know Jesse Minter was like a top candidate on a lot of people's, radar as far as like best young coordinators in the league who are going to be a coach. And so, I mean, from that standpoint, I'm not saying he's a bad hire because I don't think he's going to be a good coach. I'm saying this is a bad hire because you're hiring a rookie head coach, bringing in a rookie OC to a team that has Super Bowl aspirations is not even like that. That's not even enough. They are Super Bowl like or bust at this point. Like, you have Lamar Jackson, who, look, he's got injury issues, was dinged up a little bit more this year, didn't quite run as well as he did before. Now, maybe that's just because he was dinged up all year, but a quarterback who's running like Lamar doesn't tend to age gracefully in the NFL. And I don't think, well, look, he's come a long way as a passer, and I know people are going to say, well, like, if you look at Lamar's passer rating, yeah, his passer rating is great, but that's also predicated on the fact of how great of a runner he is and how much more that opens up when he is such a threat. If he becomes less of a threat, my guess is, and we've seen it, he's not as great of a passer. And so I don't like the idea of bringing in a guy who, in theory could be your coach for the next 20 years and, really grow into it. But you're on Lamar's timeline right now. Unless, these rumors about him and the Raiders or whoever are true and you are really shopping him and you're going to get rid of him, makes sense then if you're going to overhaul everything. But I don't think that's what they're going to do. And so when we're talking about a rookie head coach on the defensive side of the ball and a rookie OC who hasn't called plays, it's just the most experience in that room and the oldest players in those rooms are going to be players. And I just don't like that for a team who's looking at next year as we need to win a Super Bowl, or the next 3 years that we need to win a Super Bowl. And so, I mean, we'll see who they hire as the DC. Hopefully, my guess is they almost have to go with somebody with experience as a head coach on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know who's still out there for that, but it's just, we typically see a lot of these head coaches that are first-year head coaches go get somebody experienced with head coaching experience just to kind of be that safety net on the sideline. Again, like I said, I think Jesse Minter, I think he'll be great. Very similar to like Seattle's coach. I think, he's kind of that next one, like in that area. And look, Seattle's coach, McDonald, he moved quick, but it's just, again, I don't like this move for a team that's expecting to, or saying basically like, hey, we need to win a Super Bowl now. Next one, man, is, let's see, where are we going to go? Bills. Again, Bills, we're just going to copy and paste the Ravens response here as far as no experience, and you're in we should win a Super Bowl window with Josh Allen. But I think it's even more so. This one was just strange because to me, when I looked at everything, because I mean, even the owner said, when he said, yeah, I wasn't planning on firing Sean McDermott until I went in the locker room and just saw the players, saw the coaching staff after that loss. And my guess is, they were just broken by this, and probably broken by the last few years as far as, you have the 13-second game. You just, you have a team that's always been knocking on the door, and then they're looking at this year as, okay, no Chiefs. They're the only team that we really can't beat. No Ravens. I mean, we beat them, but like, no Lamar. That's a wild card. They're like, this is no Joe Burrow. Like, this is our year. Like, it's our turn. And so I can get that locker room being broken and just, wanting a new voice, things like that. And that's what the owner said. He said, yeah, we want, it's just, we need somebody to come in with a new voice who, like can just get the kind of that feeling and everything out of the room. But then you hire somebody that's been there the whole time. And so again, to me, it's just, it makes sense if you're going to go out and hire somebody, a McCarthy, whatever, a McCarthy, a Harbaugh. It makes sense, right? Coaches who have winning experience, who have been head coaches in big games, and maybe they can get you over the hump. But going with Joe Brady, who, I mean, some of these catastrophic losses you've had and just spirit breaking losses he's been a part of. And the whole reason you were moving on was because of just the temperature in the room. And so to me, that one's just a little weird as well. And then last couple here, man, Stefanski to the Falcons. That one, I mean, I like it for the Falcons. I like it, in a sense of the Falcons have so much talent on offense between Drake London, Bijan, all that. It's great. It's going to be great to see what Stefanski, who I think is a really good coach, offensive coach. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do with that. My only kind of weird thing with him is I'm like, you left because you couldn't get the quarterback right. Now you're walking onto a team who also can't get the quarterback right and doesn't have the quarterback, unless maybe he loves what he sees from Penix, or maybe he thinks he can get a resurgence from Kirk Cousins. It's just, to me, it's kind of like, yeah, you upgraded your offense, the talent on your offense, you downgraded the talent on your defense, and your biggest problem in Cleveland is still your biggest problem. Maybe, well, you know what? Your biggest problem in Cleveland is probably that you're coaching for Cleveland. Your second biggest problem is you couldn't get a quarterback, and you still don't have a quarterback. So to me, that one's just weird. I feel like I almost wonder if Stefanski, and I said this right when the Bills job came open, I'm like, Stefanski's probably, a lot of these coaches are probably just kicking themselves for hopping on these early jobs, thinking, like nothing else is going to be there. And then the Bills job comes opening and you're just like, oh, I would love to be coaching the Bills right now. I'd love to have Josh Allen as my quarterback. And so, yeah, I think that's my kind of take with the Stefanski thing. And then the last couple ones here, they're all going to kind of tie together, because I'm going to talk about how Brian Daboll went to be the OC for the Tennessee Titans and Cam Ward under Robert Saleh, which I get that. I mean, he's going to be the play caller, and the offense is going to be his. And then Mike McDaniel's taking the Chargers OC job. And again, Harbaugh, McDaniel's going to be the play caller probably, or not probably, he is. Mike McDaniel's going to be the play caller. And, you get Justin Herbert. Okay, I get it. And then we're going to talk about how the Eagles hired Sean Mannion, the quarterback coach from the Packers. And the reason I'm kind of lumping all these together is that Eagles OC job, they interviewed McDaniel. They were interested in Daboll. There was a laundry list of guys that they interviewed. And from an Eagles point of view, well, my thing is, obviously, when you look at this, it's very telling as far as what the league thought about the Eagles' offensive coordinator position. When Daboll chooses to go to the Titans, who have Cam Ward as their quarterback, and that's it. And McDaniel, who, again, you get Justin Herbert, who we've seen implode in the playoffs, and, good O-line. But, I mean, if I was to run you through Chargers versus Eagles on the offensive side of the ball, well, let's call the O-lines a wash. Saquon Barkley is the best running back. AJ, if he's still there, and Devontae are probably the two best receivers. Jalen Hurts, I mean, if you want to say Herbert's better, more talented, sure. But, I mean, we've seen Jalen Hurts play incredible in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, and we've seen Justin Herbert melt down. So I would say the Eagles' offensive side, far more talented. And so why would, if you're these top-of-the-line Daboll, McDaniel offensive coaches, why wouldn't you take the Eagles job? And so that alone is very telling as far as what the league and what these coaches thought about the Eagles job. And I think the reasoning for that is, and you guys already know, Sirianni is going to be the number one reason here. And to me, it's the only reason. Because I can't think of, when you look at the Eagles over the last few years, Howie, best GM in the league over the last few years, I'd probably say, if not the best, top 2 or 3. So you get the best GM. You get an owner in Lurie who is willing to spend. I mean, look, the Eagles are top in spending. The amount of dead money that they have when it comes to, I think it's like 2028, 2029, something like that, is double the amount of the person in second, of the team in second. So you have an owner who not only is willing to, but wants to open the pocketbook for the team. Does not care. So you have one of the best owners willing to spend money. You have one of the best GMs, if not the best GM, who, his whole thing is how much he wins, trades, free agency, all of it. You have one of the most talented, if not the most talented offense in the league. And you can't get a top OC candidate. Again, now maybe they all just look at A.J. Brown and they're like, nope, all that other stuff, forget that. Not messing with this guy. Or, maybe it's Hurts thing. Maybe I could partially see if, it's like, hey, I want a guy. Daboll, it's not true for Daboll. Maybe it's true for McDaniel, but I want a guy who I know can make, all these intermediate throws, which, look, that's a big part of a lot of these guys' offenses now is that intermediary game. And so that's part of it. Hurts, for whatever reason, whether it's been coaching, whether it's been him, has not liked to and hasn't really worked that part of the field. Or maybe you just think the Eagles are going to fall off a cliff. I don't know. But I think two of those reasons are no-goes. Like it's definitely not the AJ thing. It's definitely not the Eagles falling off a cliff. Maybe it's a little bit of the Hurts thing. Just, they're like, my offense wouldn't work with him. But I mean, you're talking about Cam Ward. He's more raw. And anyways, when you look at it, and part of this, one of the things, it's Sirianni's fault. One of them, not so much. I think the fact that he is basically like, well, if he doesn't win next year, he's fired. And if he's fired, probably means I'm fired. Because while I know we saw the Bills hire from within, most of the time, if a head coach gets fired, whole staff gets fired with him, because obviously the new head coach is going to bring his staff in. So I think if you're an OC, you're looking at that situation as like, okay, well, one, if I don't do well, we're not going to do well. I'm going to be fired. He's going to be fired. So why would I want to put myself in that situation where I'm in the same job market next year? I think that's part of it. I think another big part of it is I think Sirianni probably rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I'm not a fan of him. I'm sure I'm not the only person. I'm sure there's coaches who look at him and like, I'm going to have to work with that guy every day. Like, he's going to be sitting in on our meetings. That's the guy who I'm going to have to go tell, I'm not going to answer to him. And so I think that's a big part of it. And I think to piggyback on if he's fired, I think you look at a lot of these coaches like a Mike McDaniel and a Daboll who say, I'm not going to take that job. That head coach position is going to be open next year, and I'll go interview for the head coach position. And look, now as far as honing in on Sean Mannion, because I think it's a bad hire. You went and got a guy who's never called plays to be the OC for a head coach who does not call plays because he himself said he can't do it. And so you're now basically in the same situation we were last year with a rookie play caller with Super Bowl expectations, and you're just going to hope for the best. And now, look, I know everyone's talking about, well, Sean Mannion, I mean, he's played and coached under McVay and Kevin O'Connell, and he's got Shanahan and, and Kubiak and all this. And it's like, yeah, a lot of guys have played and coached under those guys and aren't ready. And maybe Sean is, from what I've heard, Sean, like, especially from LaFleur, said, yeah, like, he's a brilliant offensive mind. And again, we've seen these brilliant young up-and-comers where, one, they don't pan out. To me, though, the thing that makes the least amount of sense to me is, one, Sean feels like, this should be like if he was to be going to the Giants, right? Young quarterback, all that. Even him going to the Titans, young quarterback, it's like gives you time to kind of grow with them. And, You're not going to be there's not going to be the Philadelphia spotlight on you. If you might get your whole house wrecked up because you had a bad season. But there's also just there's not the expectation, right? Like with this, every week when the Eagles lost, or even if they won but they looked bad, it was like, what's wrong with the Eagles offense? Is it Petula? Is it this? Is it this? It's got to be Petula. And so you're going to bring that in again for a guy who's never had to deal with this. And so to me, it feels like if he was going to go OC this year, a Titans, something like that would have been great for him. Or in what I really feel is he's probably a couple years away from actually being at this point. He's a year or two away from his OC job, and we hired early. And the thing that I really don't like about it is because I know I was talking to somebody who was, I can't remember who, one of my boys, you know who you are, but I was talking to him and he was like, I like the idea that we went with, oh, you know what? No, my brother. Shout out to my brother. Look at you. You made the podcast today. But no, he's like, I like the idea of going with the young guy. And I'm like, I am 99% of the time, I'm right on board with that. I like the young, offensive, creative play callers. But I think because of where the Eagles are, it's very similar to the Ravens, where it's like, I don't like you hiring a guy who's never done this before. You're supposed to go win a Super Bowl. And so for the Eagles, I would rather you go out and hire a proven guy. Maybe he's not this genius possibility. Go get somebody proven who's like, okay, we know he's play called in big games. I would rather you go do that, because if it doesn't work, look, if it doesn't work with either of them, the outcome's the same. Everyone's fired. I'd rather fire the old guy because it didn't work and who was proven than fire the young guy who next year, when I bring in a new coach, if I really like this guy, I can bring him in as the OC that year. And now he's got a runway. It's like, look, new coach, new OC, you guys are going to have a few years. Grow into the position. You know, it doesn't look like he was going to be hired by anybody else. And so to me, it's just, this is one of those very few situations where, because the downside regardless is everyone's fired, I would rather have that guy ready for me next year. Because look, the Eagles have already shown, if you come in and if you do well as the Eagles offensive coordinator, you're gone anyways because you go get a head coaching job. And so that's where I'd prefer this be at least a year. This should be a next year move if everything does go bad. So that's where I fall along with that. And as far as all the coaching and everything. But look, we got one more topic we're going to talk about here on football before we move into some basketball. And it's still with coaching, and it's Belichick not being a first ballot Hall of Famer, which to me is the most egregious thing. To me, it almost belittles the Hall of Fame at this point. Now I question kind of their thought process and everything, because there's no way you can look at Belichick's resume and say, nah, not this year. And so that means to me either they're knocking him for the cheating scandal and all that. And here's my counter to that. And this is something I haven't really heard anybody else say. And, you know, I watch a lot of sports talk, all that. And this is kind of what, again, I haven't heard anybody else say this. But as far as if the Hall of Fame committee said, nope, it's because of the cheating, I'm going to be very interested to see when Tom Brady comes up, because while the Spygate thing, not on Brady. The Deflategate stuff, big time on Brady as well. And so if it's a cheating thing where they're like, no, cheating, we're going to knock you, I'm curious to see if the consistency on that comes up with Brady. And so my guess is it doesn't. My guess also is it's probably got something to do with how Brady is a very You see him on TV, very fun-loving guy. Everybody loves Brady, good smart, blah, blah, blah. And Belichick was always kind of, yep, just kind of rough around the edges. And obviously that should not play a part in the Hall of Fame, which, again, just kind of questions the legitimacy of everything. And now, if it is the cheating thing, again, I have no problem with it. If you want to knock the cheating scandal, everything, as long as you stay consistent with it. But what I will say is, we did have one voter come out and said, "Oh well, I wanted to vote for some of the older guys who probably aren't going to get another chance, and obviously Belichick's going to get in." If that's the reasoning, one, that voter, while I appreciate you coming out and saying why you didn't vote for him, because I think there should be that accountability, that's a fireable offense. Because if that's the case, then why should we ever have a first ballot Hall of Famer? If that's the case, why? First ballot Hall of Fame is because you were so good that obviously it's inevitable you would be in. So if your reasoning around it is Bill Belichick was inevitable, we got these other guys who it's they're right there on the edge and they probably won't get another chance. Well, they probably won't get another chance. And look, shout out to them. They almost made the Hall of Fame, or I guess they did, whatever. They just weren't quite good enough. And look, it's the Hall of Fame. We have the Basketball Hall of Fame where it's everybody gets in. The NFL Hall of Fame has always been looked at as that is the Hall of Fame. It's for legendary players. It's not for great players. It's for the great of the great. And so again, you're just kind of watering down what is viewed as the top of the line Hall of Fame, if that's going to be the case. And you're letting people in who it's oh, well, last chance, we got to get them in. Their families will be sad. That's not what the Hall of Fame is. And so, again, I appreciate him coming out and saying why he did it. But that is your vote should be stripped for saying that. All right, though, man. Look, we're gonna move on. We're coming up on time here, so we're gonna try to go through this a little quick, but we're gonna move into the NBA. Ooh. But yeah, so we're gonna move into the NBA. And we're gonna start, man. We got big news because Giannis is looking to be out of Milwaukee. And so, look, I don't fault him for this. Again, it's Milwaukee's in a place where I don't know how they get better. And, they've exhausted all their resources trying to build the team around Giannis. And they haven't really been able to do it and put a great team around him. And so, look, Giannis, again, I don't fault any NBA player who says, look, I'm in a category of player where championships matters. And it's how I'm going to get from, 18, I'm pulling that number out. It's not necessarily where I have him ranked, but he's in that area where it's I need another championship to move into 15 or I need a couple more to move into 12 or 10. And so I don't fault a guy of that caliber saying, hey, I need a better situation. I need to win because it's my legacy and I'm trying to, crack whatever. And he's given them ample time with that franchise. He brought a championship, and again, you bring that championship to Milwaukee, you're good, man. You did what you needed to do for Milwaukee. And so I think we just want to go through a couple different landing spots here. And I'm gonna go through it in a little bit of a different way. Because we know the teams that are interested. It's been reported, Heat, Timberwolves, Knicks, Warriors. I don't think Heat, Timberwolves, Knicks, throw those out. The Heat, you're basically just going to Milwaukee, a Milwaukee team in a better area. You get to live in Miami, but if your goal is winning, you're in the same situation. T-Wolves, no picks, can't do anything. Knicks, same thing, no picks unless you get another team involved who wants to give you, 3-4 picks for Karl Anthony Towns. It's just not going to happen. So, sorry. Yeah, so I just those three teams automatically out. You're not going to you're not going to be able to make a deal that makes sense um for the Bucks, and you're not going to be able to, like in the Heat's case, you're not going to be able to send him to the Heat where it's like, why would he want to go there? T Wolves, I mean, it'd be interesting. Knicks would be interesting, obviously. Like him landing in either of those places makes them contenders, like more so than they already are. Warriors, now Warriors, you do have a chance. My only problem with the Warriors, and look, I'm okay with the Warriors doing it because I think my biggest thing is I think they've threaded the needle with Steph of, okay, we really want to maximize Steph, but we also really want to set up ourselves up for the future. And I think that is a terrible, if you're an NBA team and you have a generational talent on your team, there is no future. It's right now. You go for the win every single year, because once they're gone, I don't care. I don't care what your, 24-year-old young guy who you drafted 12th overall does. Like I'm not gonna say he's never, but the likelihood of you having a guy who's going to be anywhere near this guy to where you're looking at another championship window is very low. So I love that they're like, hey, you know what? F it. Steph's still playing great. He's older. Let's go for it. And then you still have Giannis, who's still got a good amount of a career left, presumably. The only problem is, man, you're going to have to convince the Bucks how much they should love Kuminga. Because, I mean, look, the Warriors have all their draft picks. They have all swaps to give. They can give 4 draft picks, 3 swaps, or 4 and 3. Yeah. They can give all their first, all their swaps. But chances are they're going to be good enough where the draft picks and swaps aren't really going to be great. And then also it's just, I don't think Giannis, Steph, and the YMCA crew is going to be enough to even get you out of the West. So I'm going to put them off as well, just because I don't think that they're a championship team. I don't even think they're a top team in their own conference, even with Giannis and Steph, because of the gap between Giannis, Steph, whoever you want to say the second best player is, and the rest of the team. And with Jimmy Butler going out, obviously it makes it a little bit more difficult. So as far as some of the best offers, I think when you look at Atlanta, because one, great, you get to stay in the East, and you have a team that's solidly built. And you not a championship team this year, but you could see them here in the next couple years with the talent they have on the team, everything. You could see them being competitive, possibly getting there. If you're the Bucks, if you love Risa Share, that their draft pick, first pick from last year, whatever it was, if you love that guy, if you love him, that he'd be involved. You would also get. So right now, Milwaukee has the worst pick of New Orleans and themselves for this year. So you can get that other pick because Atlanta currently holds the better pick between New Orleans and Milwaukee. So you get that pick back. You'll still have yours. So you're guaranteed, with New Orleans being as bad as they are, and then you without Giannis the rest of the year being as bad as you are, 2 pretty good picks here. Then you also get your own 2027 back, which if you're losing Giannis, you're going to be bad again. And then you will need a throw-in player for salary. Kristaps is the one that would be linked to it. But again, that's what you would have. The next best offer, which I actually think would also probably be his best landing spot. Now, you do not get any kind of like proven young star kind of guy, is the Spurs giving up Vassell, Harrison Barnes. You'll get Chicago's first pick this year, Atlanta's first pick next year, Boston's in 2028, Dallas's in 2030, Sacramento's in 2031. Now, that's everything they can trade while also still keeping Castle, Harper, and Wemby, obviously. And so you still get to keep your young core. You get to add Wemby. Defensively, that team would be ridiculous. Only weakness is really shooting the ball. But and then if you're Milwaukee, you get Chicago 26, going to be a good pick. Atlanta 27, probably be an all right pick. Boston 28 is going to be a bad pick, probably. Dallas in 30, we'll see what Cooper Flag does, but let's just say he plays great. I don't see him being, 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed in the West, maybe 6 seed. So, not a great pick, whatever. Sacramento 2031. Sacramento, most guaranteed thing in the league is Sacramento's going to be bad, so you're going to get a good pick. So you have three great picks in there. One probably not, and a second one of we'll see. But and then you get a solid young Vassell, young guy, shoot the ball, role player kind of guy. So I think that's a really good offer for him. Next is and I also think, again, going back to it, I think that'd probably be the best landing spot for Giannis, just because that team would be great. And I would actually say they'd probably be the favorites in the West. Next is, as far as good offer, good landing spot, Houston giving up Şengün. They would need to fill it with salary. Like a guy like a Van Vliet who's on his big deal. And then you get Brooklyn's first round pick next year and Phoenix's first round pick next year, both presumably good picks. With that, you do get a young star in Şengün. You do get some good picks and, build around that. For Giannis, you get to go to Houston, who with Kevin Durant now, you're a win now team. Because why else do you go get Kevin Durant unless you're trying to win now? And then the last one I heard is, it's interesting because it's with Oklahoma City, and they couldn't do it until they signed J-Dub to his contract. But J-Dub for Giannis, Thunder add a couple, picks. I believe they'd have to add, a player or two with it as well. But Thunder have all the picks in the world. Jalen Williams, who they actually play worse with him on the court than without him on the court, which is weird. And so you get a young kind of, all-star kind of caliber guy in J-Dub. You get a ton of picks. You get some pieces. And so there's that also. Again, if he goes to the Thunder, that, again, head and shoulders probably makes them the best team in the league. Again, I think the Spurs or Houston, all three of those would just be ridiculous. The only problem with the Thunder, again, is like I said, you'd have to wait till the summer. And then in the summer, Giannis becomes harder to trade if you're Milwaukee. Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, wait till the summer. Like, way better for you. You have way more options. Not really, because he's going to have a player option after that. And he can basically decide anywhere he wants to go, because there's the fear of, well, if we trade for Giannis, he can opt out this year, and we traded whatever we did for a year of Giannis. At least this year, you get him for the rest of this year, the playoffs, and next year. And so you have basically 2 championship years with him as opposed to the 1. So I think Milwaukee, what's best for Milwaukee is moving him before the deadline. And I think those Houston Spurs, I think would probably be for him the best move, and can give the Bucks a pretty compelling offer. And lastly, man, we are going to talk about Jeanie Buss and LeBron. And so I'm gonna pull this up here, but if for any of you guys who haven't heard, there was an article that came out about Jeanie Buss, and it was really just talking about, it was a longer article, but in this article she talks about how she, her displeasure with LeBron. And I'm trying to pull this up. Probably should have done it before. But let's see here. But anyways, here we go. So in the story, she basically said how she didn't like how LeBron was considered a savior for a floundering franchise, and how there was a fallout between, her and LeBron because of the Westbrook trade, and how, she kind of in private, talked about, possibly trading him, trading LeBron, that is. And so, and yeah, it's just, again, part of a bigger article. The article was great. I read the whole thing. If you haven't read it, it's a good read. But what I'm going to do here is kind of go through this in the order that I just said it. So, starting with, she didn't like that LeBron was considered a savior, and this is a quote, considered a savior for a floundering franchise, rather than the front office getting credit for bringing LeBron in. So let's start with that. One, the Lakers were a floundering franchise. Like, there's no other way around it. And if you're a Laker fan and you think I'm wrong, please by all means explain it to me. What I do know is the 5 years before LeBron got there, there was a tie for the worst record over a 5-year stretch, and it was the Lakers and the franchise that we all consider such an elite franchise at the time. It was the Charlotte Bobcats. So that's the company you kept before LeBron came. It's just what it is. To me, that's a floundering franchise. You go 5 years and you're the worst team over a 5-year stretch, or second worst if you want to be optimistic. If you get glass half full when it's filled exactly at the 50% mark. That's a floundering franchise. So yes, LeBron did come to a floundering franchise. As far as, him wanting to come and be the savior as opposed to the front office landing him, look, did LeBron look at it as like, what team is the worst that I can go be the savior for? I don't think so. Does LeBron have an ego? Probably. Do we all have egos? Yeah. This is probably bigger than a lot of ours. Sure. But again, I don't think he looked at like the 5-year play, the 5-year, record for all teams. I was like, it's gotta be, I gotta go save the Bobcats or the Lakers. No, I don't think it was that. Conversely, do I think that Jeanie Buss, Rob Pelinka, and Magic Johnson all got in a room with LeBron James with, a whole presentation for him and showed it to him, and he was like, oh my God, I was gonna go to Charlotte, but after seeing this, no, I don't think that happened either. What happened was LeBron wanted to go to LA. LeBron wanted to live in LA, and is LeBron going to go to the little brother franchise in LA? No. It's, say what you want. To me, you can say this is his ego, whatever. Again, I have no informed anything on this, but just say it. LeBron James on the Clippers. Ew. LeBron James on the Lakers. Showtime Lakers. Storied franchise. Yeah, that makes sense. So the reason LeBron was there is because he wanted to live in LA. It was better for his businesses, better for his brand. And shoot, who doesn't want to play for the Lakers? Sure. But it had nothing to do with the presentation you laid out for him. And so that's number one. Number two, again, the fallout because of the failed Russell Westbrook trade and how Jeanie Buss came out not came out, but in closed doors, in quotes, privately bristled for how LeBron didn't take accountability for the move. Okay, so now here's where I will say, did LeBron want Russell Westbrook? Yes. I'm convinced. I haven't heard it from him, but I can assume that yes, he did want Russell Westbrook, and he probably made that known to them. But I will say it's a little odd about talking about not taking accountability when all I've heard about the Russell Westbrook trade since the trade is from Lakers sources saying LeBron made us do it. It was LeBron. He wanted him. We didn't even want to do it. It was LeBron. So again, little I don't want to call Jeanie Buss a hypocrite, but it's a little hypocritish when all I hear coming out since the Russell Westbrook trade is how it was all LeBron. When again, and I've detailed this in other episodes, but LeBron also was very adamant. They went out and got Ty Lue as a head coach. They didn't do that. LeBron also wanted Paul George. They didn't do that. LeBron wanted to make an in-season trade a couple years ago. They didn't do that. So don't tell me, oh, LeBron didn't take any accountability. When the Lakers have made it clear that we will say no to LeBron. So that tells me the Lakers wanted this just as much as LeBron did. And let's be honest, the Lakers love going out and getting a star player. And Russell Westbrook was a star player. So there's that portion of it. And then lastly, what did I say was the other? Oh, privately amused about trading him. To me, this is just ridiculous. So what? So essentially what they're saying, Jeanie Buss is saying is she was going around in the Lakers front office like, ugh, so sick of LeBron. We should trade him. Yeah, we should trade him. But then the offseason came and you were like, LeBron, I know I wanted to trade you, but instead, how about this? I'm going to give you a max extension and we'll add a no trade clause to it. Again, maybe that's what happened. I don't know. All I'm saying is a little odd that you would be trying to trade a guy or considering trading a guy and instead give him a no trade clause in a max contract. So there's that, And then as far as the other things, LeBron has done that, I'm sure they're mad that he gets credit for or doesn't get credit for, whatever. Anthony Davis, a championship, resurrecting a franchise. I mean, take your pick of what of those things goes to LeBron, all of them. But, and then Anthony Davis conversely also turned into Lucas. So, I mean, Le GM really working a lot of magic. So there's that. But again, it's just, this article is great because it's not this article. That whole thing was a small part of the article that got all the headlines. The article is great because it basically talks about, and really what it highlights is how much Jeanie Buss should be thanking LeBron, because while she doesn't feel like he saved them, the article basically lays out, and this is what I've been saying for years, is they were on the verge of being the worst owners and basically taking a storied franchise and putting it in the basement of the NBA. And that's what the article's about. That's what LeBron saved them from. And so again, rather than, being upset about your relationship, and again, look, they've had to sell the Lakers now. And so again, it's just LeBron essentially saved Jeannie's legacy as a Lakers owner by getting her that championship. Because since she took over, nothing for the Lakers had gone well. Other than being able to draft high and not do anything with those picks. So, look, man, but that's it for me. I appreciate y'all as always. Let's Be Real podcast, man. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast, man. We're on there. Again, like I said, appreciate y'all, and we will see y'all next time. We'll be talking about the Super Bowl. Appreciate y'all.